It's been 1 year and a few weeks since I left my job to pursue art full-time, and today I'm going to share with you the system I am using to evaluate my past year and how it's going in each area I work in. If you're new here, I'm Mel, and I am an artist, educator, and retreat facilitator based in Northern California, which means a lot of the things I do look like this. The first years of running a business of any kind can be really tricky, especially if you're chronically ill and or neurodivergent like me. No matter how savvy you think you are, at the end of the day, we often end up leaning into what makes us the most money as the barometer for what we should keep doing the most of. I'll discuss why in a bit. My goal here is to share a different method that I had to develop after spending a couple weeks this summer working 7 days in a row and subsequently throwing my back out. This system is one I wish I had when I was first starting, so I think it will really benefit you. I'm going to evaluate each component of my work based on effort, well-being, and community impact. What I mean by that is, 1, I will analyze how much effort I had to exert for this work. Was this worthwhile for the outcome I experienced? How did doing this kind of work impact my well-being, aka my ability to take care of myself, my chronic illnesses, and my mental health? And lastly, but most importantly, how did this work help me build community? Because metrics are cool, but community is deep, supportive, and the most important core value for me as a human being. I also must emphasize that I'm approaching this system from a very optimistic, degrowth, hopepunk flavor. I'm going to put some links explaining those terms by other creators who have made amazing videos down below. I am someone who is steady in simply wanting to have enough, rather than to be super rich. This conscious choice isn't for everyone, and that's okay. I personally do not want to look at year-over-year monetary growth as the main measure of my success, because that often comes at the expense of our humanity. If you have similar values and beliefs, this system will resonate. You might not want the same type of life as me, and that's okay. But we are allowed to want different things. What I hope here is that maybe considering the work you do in this way can help you claim a little bit more of your time back. One last thing before we get into it. I did not, as a lot of videos on this platform state, just leap into the abyss and quit my job rashly. Please, do not just quit your job rashly when you're mad. Please make a plan and work towards a career like mine slowly and intentionally. Do not put yourself in a position of financial hardship to pursue being a full-time artist. Risky financial decisions can cause great harm, and it is not the thing I want to condone here. Far from it. I will be honest, I spent years plotting to do this. About a decade. I tried and failed in my 7 years in the traditional art world. Once I recovered from those experiences, I started researching. I started looking into new systems and learning marketing. I watched videos from business and productivity channels and made note of what worked. And then I thought about those things, considering what could adapt to my brain and body, knowing that it's different. I analyzed how systems and processes could serve my art and my well-being better than it had last time. I made a plan, and a backup plan, and a backup to the backup plan. In early 2023, I bought a Notion template from my friend and fellow artist Kelsey Rodriguez, and I used that to test and verify the different ways that I was planning to build my business that were actually going to work. Art school did not teach me how to write a business plan. If you need advice on figuring things out, like figuring out what income streams you'll use or how to market your work and managing the day-to-day processes of running a business, you should check out her channel. It's tagged below. I hope this system that I've made can help complement your own plans and strategies to put yourself and your work out there. And I hope that it will help you ask if your career will support your long-term goals and core values as a human. Also, not everyone needs to do art full-time. Day jobs are so valid. You can even use this system to analyze the different things you do at work in order to conserve your energy for more time to make art. I think that reforming our current system to fit our needs starts with all of us and in our communities. We can change and challenge our thinking on a local and tangible level. Success will look different for everyone, and the pie of what takes up your time as a full-time / part-time / self-employed / freelance/professional artist will look different for each person. I want to be incredibly cautious to not continue to do things that put profit as the ultimate authority. This is causing lots of problems in our culture. The model that I've developed is focused on qualitative metrics. What does that mean? Well, generally, there are two kinds of metrics that people use to evaluate things. Quantitative, meaning number go up, follower count go up, good. View count go up, good. Individual sales and specific metric hitting numbers, total number of calls taken, etc. The higher the number, the better you're doing. Versus qualitative metrics focuses on the quality of each interaction, your relationships deepening. People are actually connecting. You're helping to inspire others. You're sharing your skills. You're providing value. I spent 15 years of my career working in retail. I understand the importance of working primarily towards quantitative line go up metrics. My brain is conditioned to see spreadsheets, growth averages, and sales goals as the default strategy for motivation. At my old job, I was measuring my abilities as an educator, a naturally qualitative practice with quantitative metrics. And that brought on awful impacts on my well-being. If you are neurodivergent like me, these typical methods of measuring success are very likely not going to work or resonate with you. You'll need to design your own systems. The point here is that if you want to turn an aspect of your creativity into work, you shouldn't only focus on the numbers. In the freelancing world, opportunities will come in big waves. And if you say yes to everything and have no boundaries, you'll end up working 7 days a week for a month straight too. I am actively working so hard to try and change my mindset. And that is why I created this new system to evaluate success, and I hope that I can inspire you to do the same too. The main goal I have as an artist is to persistently bloom. That's why I named my channel after that concept, because I want to share that process with others. If you are someone who is curious about one or two of these income streams or want to bookmark this video and look back on this later, feel free to use the chapters I have provided below. But let's actually get into the meat and potatoes of this argument. First, I want to focus on makers markets. I am starting with makers markets here because these have been my main focus for connecting with my audience and selling work, rather than the traditional route of galleries. The first makers market I did was in early December of last year at Bees and Blooms, a local farm that I built a relationship with. I needed to practice setting up my display in order to get into other markets, and they had a sale at their farm stand going on. A key thing to keep in mind is that applications for a lot of bigger markets require photographic proof that I had done one already, and that would be used as an evaluative strategy to see if I could actually get in the market. I did not love the gatekeeping nature of this, but I understood it after I set up. I realized my setup needed a lot of work. Some of my strategies for displaying work failed when I added this wild element that I had not yet considered, wind. Things fell off the wall. Plus, I realized that I needed to be super intentional about which of these types of experiences I was doing and asking a serious question, would my ideal audience be at them? At that market, I sat in the cold all day and sold one original painting and one greeting card. Not bad for a first time. And while I sat, I took notes on how people interacted with my booth. I spent quiet moments creating a nice inventory and pricing database on both Notion and in SquareUp, the thing that I use for transactions. And overall, I learned a boatload. I did not have enough mid-priced options. And I think this is a huge problem with artists. We often think that our work needs to sell for thousands of dollars. And I needed to really think about this. I need to focus on having a stock of more prints, especially for buyers new to my work. I have to build those relationships first before people are going to buy something super expensive. My first big market was Creative Communal in Berkeley this March, and it was a serious test of my setup, my resilience, and my audience. This one went incredibly well to the point where I made a video about it, even though there was the great wind disaster that knocked down my display and damaged a few original paintings. I learned the importance of learning how to tie different knots with rope so that I can tie everything to my tent and make sure it's secure. I loved the experience of putting my retail skills to work together for myself, and I met so many cool people who wanted to take my art home and put it on their walls. I couldn't believe it. I had never had this experience before in a gallery. All those shows that I had on my CV in my entire career before, I hadn't been able to connect with this many people in a single day. And so I decided I wanted to do more. I cautiously applied for 4 more markets happening later that year in both May and June. I had a booth at Bees and Blooms again for the Sonoma County Farm Trails weekend, and that really didn't work. I sold 2 stickers and a greeting card. If you start digging into markets, I think it's essential that you consider the audience of the event and really who you plan to connect with. This was an event that was mostly for families to go for free from farm to farm, checking out what was blooming in the spring and doing things like feeding chickens, not supporting local makers. I was grateful, though, for the opportunity to meet people and practice once again, because it wasn't like Creative Communal. Those markets that often cost a little bit more money for you to apply for are good because they're doing more marketing and bringing in the right kind of audience for your work. Regardless of 1 good market and 2 kind of iffy ones, I persisted and I switched gears. Instead of focusing on the paintings that I wanted to make, I thought about my audience there. And I made a print run of paintings that I made of flowers from Bees and Blooms, as well as local California wildflowers that are beloved. And I was doing a booth on Mother's Day. This one went so much better. And I learned the importance of considering the customer of the event when deciding which prints you'll offer. So if you're going to do something around Halloween, make sure you have spooky prints. If you're going to do things around the holidays, make sure you have things that either represent the holidays themselves or represent beautiful landmarks of your area that people can use as cards to remind others to get out and be in beautiful places. When June rolled around, however, I had 2 markets, 2 weekends back to back. The first was the biggest one I had applied for yet, the Walnut Creek Art and Wine Festival. It was an expensive booth fee. Most of these markets I had done before didn't cost me more than $175 per market, and this one was just shy of $400. I thought, though, great, 60,000 attendees. A relatively affluent area of the East Bay where people are into hiking and experiencing the trails. Of course, these are going to be my people. But I was dead wrong. This festival was less about the art and wine and more about music performances happening on the entire other side of the venue. I didn't really feel like artists or wine were valued at this event. The booth curation was pretty bad. My booth was next to a vibrating bed company, and it was directly across from a roofing company. Another artist friend that I made a couple booths down from me was next to Comcast. But the event was saved by one of my Substack subscribers showing up and buying a bunch of art on the second day. The benefits of an email list are many, and I'll talk about this when I discuss Substack in a bit. If you're watching, thank you. I did another market, the Patchwork Show in Oakland, and that made me feel super safe, welcome, accepted, and the organizer, Nicole, went above and beyond to support every vendor. This was my, honestly, best market experience to date. I want to work with them again, and hopefully I'll do more of their shows next year. My plan to do a couple of their November events was foiled by my housing situation. Luckily, I got to stay where I'm living, but I'm planning to do 2 markets with other organizers this December. Okay, evaluation time for makers markets. First, effort. I'm going to rate this a 4.5 out of 5. The effort that goes into doing these shows, being 100% on for 5 to 8 hours a day, exhausts me. I am completely drained and need to recuperate for a couple of days after I do these events. I also have to prep for the weeks leading up to it that take away from my ability to make art. Doing weekend-long events, though, with no breaks, will not be possible for me without hiring staff to help me in the future. I love doing them, but I need to balance and schedule serious time for rest and breaks. Next, well-being. I'm going to rate this one about a 2.5 out of 5. These can be a huge challenge to me in terms of my mental health. Sometimes when you interface with the general public, people will say awful things to you. And the other times, people will say the most incredible and supportive things. Luckily, 9 out of 10 times, it is the wonderfully kind things. And I think a lot of this has to do with being super selective about where I share my work. It comes down to balance and staying in your integrity. Lastly, my community rating for makers markets is 4 out of 5. This is the most important part of doing these markets. These are not just opportunities to sell things you make, but brilliant opportunities to build community and have really wonderful conversations with strangers about the kind of art you make. Sometimes you meet people that totally aren't your intended audience, but that's okay too. I absolutely love the super localized community I've been able to build around me because I have done these markets. So next up, Substack. I love blogging. And underneath all of that, I love writing. I ran an art blog in Kansas City where I wrote essays and reviews of local shows for 7 years. I went to art school and I briefly double majored in both painting and creative writing, but I ended up dropping the double major to do independent studies on art criticism and nonfiction writing with the faculty I admired most. Writing is a creative process for me. If you are an absolute beginner, though, to marketing your work, I suggest blogging or sending a newsletter as a great way to get started. You'll learn how to write by writing in your own voice, a conversational, genuine tone. The best part is you can edit what you say over and over. You'll improve over time and get to watch your work grow. Plus, the nice thing about blogging is that you'll build connections with people who will read your work, and Substack is a really great place to do that. Plus, email lists, unlike follower counts, are things that we actually own. Social media platforms could just disappear in an instant, whereas the email list that you have, you can take somewhere else. In the era where so many artists are getting sick and tired of chasing the ever-moving goalpost of algorithms, trending audios, short-form video hooks, blogging is a slower, more deliberate way to connect with people. If this idea resonates, you might enjoy the essay by one of my other favorite people here on YouTube, CJ the X, and their desire to return to Web 1.5. I'll put a link down below in the description. My Substack has been the place where I have shared this journey in great detail over the past year. It's what makes writing scripts for YouTube way easier. It's how I stay connected with folks I meet after I do makers markets. And it has allowed me to feel comfortable to completely quit making reels for Instagram and free that time up to make more art. The surprising thing about Substack is that I took a leap and opened up paid subscriptions in June. Once I had established a habit of blogging at least once a month, and in a few stretches, 3 times or more in a single month, I was ready to see if people wanted to start supporting my practice. And they did. I'm so grateful to those of you who are subscribing and reading my work, both free and paid. If you want to join them, you can with the link down below. So let's rate Substack. In terms of effort, I'm going to rate this a 2 out of 5. Writing for Substack comes super naturally to me. I love waking up, having my coffee, and writing first thing in the morning. Sometimes when I'm sharing bigger things, I need to write a bit, take a walk, and then review it later. But that's the nice thing. I get to edit nice and slowly. Overall, I'm really happy with how Substack doesn't take more than it gives. I really feel like the effort I put into this platform is balanced in what it gives back to me, and it's a good alternative to something like Patreon for somebody like me who just wants to write. Next up, let's rate well-being. I'm going to rate this as a 4 out of 5. While working on writing for this platform, I don't feel like I have to tailor my voice to fit the needs of the algorithm. I can just be myself, and that lets me be as long-winded or as short and sweet as I need to be in a given week. This doesn't stress me out or give me anxiety. Win-win. Lastly, let's rate community. I'm going to give this a 5 out of 5. This space of writing has allowed me to connect way more deeply with my people. I was able to test some of my big ideas I've been dreaming up for my life with my subscribers. People genuinely care and occasionally share quotes from my writing with others on the platform. Through this, I have been able to provide both insights and creative prompts to people who follow my work. Excellent overall. So next up, teaching. I am thrilled that my weeks are now often filled with in-person classes and tutoring students. It feels so rewarding to share the methods I have learned over the years with others. Diffusing the negative self-talk of my students and showcasing what is possible when you carve out a little time to make art is really magic. I started out making my own classes by finding a venue to host them, and using Eventbrite to promote and sell tickets. This worked pretty well because Eventbrite comes up early in Google searches. It's SEO optimized. So it was advantageous, more advantageous than my website. 2/3 of students found my classes by Google searching, which was great. I filled a drawing from nature class in October, a sunset painting course in November, and a color chart course in February. But I'll be honest, there were a lot of courses that I offered that did not fill. I tried partnering with a winery and offering free paint and sip sessions as a marketing option, but I still struggled to gain interest. A few of these events that filled were super fun, but I started realizing something might be off. These experiences helped me to realize that I wasn't super great at local marketing, especially because I started over in my new community after building one in Kansas City for almost a decade. The thing you don't realize when you relocate as an adult is that you have to completely restart and rebuild your community from scratch, especially when it comes to anything in person. That's what makes doing things like markets super helpful. While I felt that I was starting to get somewhere and building an audience for teaching these few classes, I realized I really couldn't do it on my own. So I partnered with a community center that helps me with marketing, payment processing, and building my audience. Plus, now I get access to great state-of-the-art art facilities. And it took a solid 10 months working with them to get to a point where I have an established group of students regularly signing up for classes. I still was struggling to fill things up until this fall. I also had the opportunity to teach online this summer with my friend Kelsey that I mentioned earlier. We co-facilitated an artist business blueprint workshop that was 3 days over the course of a weekend. It was one of the most fun and inspiring courses I have taught to this date, and we're hoping to do it again next year. It shared so much of our combined knowledge with an audience of aspiring artists, and that felt great. This summer, I also taught youth camps with the local community center, and that was pretty good. It was a little challenging in certain aspects, having entirely new groups of students every 2 weeks, and the thing that comes with teaching anything K through 12, general resource limitations. I also realized that my energy level for littles is incredibly strong and super excitable for the first 4 hours of my day. And then after I eat lunch, I dip and struggle. And trying to continue through the afternoon was a challenge for me. Elementary art teachers, I have mad respect for what you do. All right, so let's rate teaching. Effort. 5 out of 5. Teaching is extremely high effort. Anyone who tells you it isn't is lying. I absolutely love teaching, but I need to be super aware and gentle with myself not to try and layer things together. I said yes to stacking too many teaching opportunities on top of one another this year, and it led me to a bit of burnout. Thank goodness for video games. That helped. I love doing this work though, and I won't stop. But I need to be conscious of the amount of effort it takes, and I need to schedule it right into my weeks. When I teach youth camp, I need to clear my schedule of other responsibilities. All right, next up, well-being. I'm going to give teaching about a 2.5 out of 5 for well-being. Teaching, especially in person, is relatively high risk for me as a chronically ill person. I have to take extra precautions when I teach, and it often drains me quite a bit. My body cannot handle quite what it used to before I got sick. There is a huge impact on my ability to care for myself when I'm teaching longer workshops outside of the midweek only quarter system I've committed to right now. I must make sure to do things like meal prep and ask for more help and support from my immediate community. And lastly, the most important thing is that I need to take time to rest and not work. That is probably the hardest thing for me to do. Lastly, let's think about teaching in terms of community. This I'm going to give a 5 out of 5. Teaching is the absolute best way that I build and give back to my community. There is nothing better than the feeling of watching a student light up after making a discovery, the feelings of watching lesson plans come to life in the form of brilliant and clever work. I also absolutely love teaching multi-week courses with students because I get to know them, see how they are adapting to the lessons, and be able to nurture their art better. This is seriously one of my biggest purposes in life. I love to teach. Which brings me to the next thing, retreats. So, retreats. I don't own land somewhere in order to have a big retreat center, but I host retreats online. Building on my love for teaching, adventure art, and the desire to make things a little bit more manageable and sustainable, I started facilitating personalized one-on-one retreats this year. I love doing this work. This is my favorite way to teach, and if I could have it my way, this is the only thing I ever want to do aside from painting and blogging. When I facilitate retreats with folks, I make them personalized lesson plans. I help them go on art adventures. They grow their unique creative practices through my sharing of the most deeply relevant skills I've learned over the years. It's the place where I feel that being a jack of all trades comes in handy because I can help folks with everything, from setting good intentions, to understanding color theory, to making space for their struggles, to setting up better systems and giving them nourishing projects to complete that inspire them to go in a whole new direction. This type of teaching is the reason why I wanted to be a professor. I wanted to help support the blooming and creative practice of people. It's just the most rewarding thing from start to finish, because watching people do the work is magic. It happens on a really, really small and low-key intimate level. You might enjoy a retreat like this if you are working on a creative practice that needs a little bit more time and care, or the hobby that you love just needs to cultivate a little bit more joy in your life. I also decided after leading the first 7 retreats that I needed to make the experiences more accessible. So I sat down, I taught myself how to use Figma, an app typically used for app development, and I created this neat little PDF DIY creative retreat that I just uploaded to my website this week. We are in absolutely wild times, y'all. This is a moment that I've seen called a polycrisis, and I feel like that's really ringing true. And I wanted to make something super affordable that would also allow folks to connect with their inner creatives. You can experience what it's like to go on a retreat with me in this 29-page PDF. Want to know more? There's a link down below to the info page and a product link too, so you can snag one for just $33. So now, let's rate retreats. Effort. 5 out of 5. These, just like teaching, they are teaching, so they're high effort. Are you seeing a pattern here? That I have a tendency to do a lot of high effort things. Yeah, that is the reason why I'm doing this evaluation. I love the ability, though, to make really transformative experiences for people. I have had participants email me reviews where they are suddenly now feeling comfortable creating again after quitting, or feeling confident to immediately start working with the techniques they learned in their latest artworks. This high effort aspect is why I decided to make a sample experience as an affordable PDF. This way I could start reaching more people at a lower cost with the methods that I teach, and hopefully in the near future, start leading group retreats online and in person. All right, next up, well-being. This is gonna get a higher score for me than teaching in person because these are primarily hosted online. And I give people ample time to create customized lesson plans for participants. These experiences don't cause unnecessary stress. I feel really nourished with each one. Seeing how folks implement the things that they learn, it gives me so much back that makes me feel as though I'm really living my purpose and helping others. So next up, community. I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 5 too. I almost want to break the math for this one and rate it 6 out of 5 because wow, I feel so lucky to support people and build deeper relationships with them through the work we do together. Some of my retreat participants have even joined my Discord server, where they're active participants. Others have expressed a deep interest for some sort of in-person experience within the next year. I love the idea of connecting all of these folks together, and I cannot wait to keep building this concept. So next up is making art/commissions. It would be silly of me to do this video and not talk about art making. The large majority of my art sales this year happened at makers markets. That is where original paintings find homes most of the time. I have sold a single painting though through my website, and my online store has mostly sold prints and stickers. The most popular item I sold online though was my DIY creative retreat zine that I made earlier this year, and I have a whole video on it I'll link here too for you to watch after this one. Its popularity is also why I made that PDF. I tried to find a way to take that idea and expand it into something even bigger and higher impact. I am including commissions in this bucket too because I find clients through my original work. People often like a specific painting and want something similar for themselves. That's how I like to work. I also write my contracts and work with clients in a way that I am able to do my favorite thing and make people really excited to have custom work in their home. I have also done commissions that are album art for people too, and would love to share my process on here of creating pitch decks for them and writing contracts for clients. So if you're curious about that, let me know in the comments. Making art, though, is the glue that ties all of the different areas of my career together. This is the whole reason why I do everything else. Making art makes posting on Substack easier because I can share photos of my sketchbook or my paintings and talk about the adventures that I went on to make them. It also makes working as a teacher easier because when I struggle with certain concepts in my studio, I can show my students how I'm overcoming them using various techniques like value studies or color charts. So let's rate this one based on effort. I'm going to rate this a 2.5 out of 5. Painting is hard, but it doesn't always feel effortful. It will absolutely wear out my brain and make me feel incredibly tired when I am in the thick of solving color problems or laying out shapes in a painting or working way larger than I normally do, which is what I'm doing currently. But it's a totally different mind state. I love making art. And while the art is hard work and requires solid breaks to protect my body, especially my wrist, goodness, it's what I would like to be doing most of the time. It makes me feel great. In terms of well-being, making art gets a 5 out of 5. It is one of the best possible things for my mental and physical health. I came out of my doom and gloom period and started to make the adventure art I share with all of you now. I'm listening to far less Phoebe Bridgers. We all have times where we go dormant from our creative practices, but having community that guides you back to the habit of making is an important part of persistently blooming. Community. I rated this one a little lower on purpose. I'm giving it a 3 out of 5. While I think making art, of course, connects us to community and builds relationships when I make it, in order for that to happen, I have to share it. And that sharing and building community process takes away from making art. I think a lot of folks think in their head that the majority of life as an artist, especially a full-time artist, means that you will spend your time primarily working quietly in your studio. Wherever that idea came from, please know that it is an absurd fantasy that can only be achieved in The Sims 4 or if you live in a country with great artist granting programs, or lastly, if you come from significant family wealth, which I do not. Most of the time spent as an artist, if this is your job, is spent doing things that are not sexy. They are not glamorous. This year I overhauled my website and sunk probably between 150 and 200 hours in that process, and it still isn't done. There are new paintings I've made that I need to document and list. There are paintings that I have documented and edited the photos for that I haven't listed because I haven't figured out how I can ship them. If I sell a painting or print, I need to pack it, write thank you cards, and ship it. I am writing scripts for YouTube and blog posts for Substack, and that takes me anywhere between 10 and 20 hours every week. In order to do makers markets, I have to research them, create spreadsheets that analyze them and which ones are worth doing, and then I have to apply. Please recognize that being an artist and having community and supporting your work is going to require lots of emails, lots of sustained commitment, and a lot of unglamorous writing and marketing work. But truly, I'm not complaining. It's worth it. It's just a thing that you need to recognize is part of the plan. It's not going to connect you to community unless you put in that work. Just know that the making of your work is very insular and very individual, and you will need to push yourself to connect with those things to make a community. Doing things like co-working with others while you paint is a great way to start doing that. Next up, YouTube. So I thought that monetizing this little channel right here was a dreamy stretch at the beginning of the year. Last year, I said that I would love to eventually monetize this space and have this help support my practice. But in following in the footsteps of my friends that have done that, I expected it to take at least 3 years. But it didn't, thanks to all of you. I feel so incredibly lucky to have, at the time of recording this video, 5,100 of you here. I can only imagine how my teenage self who grew up watching YouTube would react if I told them that yes, you now have a YouTube channel about your art and your adventures, and more than 5,000 people said that they want to show up and see what you're regularly doing. I'm laughing a little bit because this is wild, y'all. I learned how to video edit at my old job. I learned how to talk on a teleprompter while I worked in marketing. I learned how to write after years and years of practice. This isn't my first attempt at YouTube. My art blog and I tried it many years ago and got overwhelmed and quit. Much like the story of Chapel Roan, I don't want to sell you on the story of overnight success, because a lot of times quick success for folks happens because of cumulative experience over time. If you want to do this too, please, honestly, do it. This is the best social media platform I've ever made content for. The comments I get here are 95% of the time thoughtful, empathetic, and wonderful. And the best ones I actually screenshot on a folder on my desktop to look at on my bad days. So thank you all. I am so grateful for all of you. And so is Lupin here too. I love sharing stories and writing essays about stuff I've been through, from art school to other personal experiences, trials, and struggles, and I look forward to sharing more of my history with you. So thank you for helping me do this. So let's rate it. In terms of effort, I'm going to say that YouTube is a 5 out of 5. YouTube is extremely high effort. I had to learn so much this past year, from how to light to how to color grade. Heck, the video I made like this last year is embarrassing to watch now. The audio levels are way off. I look yellow and orange, but at the end of the day, it's all process, right? I now spend a solid 10 hours a week or more writing these scripts. I love doing this because writing is a creative practice to me, similar to my art. But please, do not take for granted how much work it is running a channel. I made a commitment to myself to make 2 videos a month this year, meaning 24 videos, counting this one. And remember how I said that thing about being an overachiever earlier? Yeah, I did 46. Almost double. I just keep having ideas that I want to share, but these, again, are high effort. I do want to take more time on certain scripts and make others more casual and less scripted. Let me know in the comments if you have thoughts on a favorite kind of video of mine that I've made, and I want to make more of those for y'all. Okay, next up, let's rate this on well-being. So, most of the time, because I don't have sponsorships yet, I set my own deadlines. So I can push things out and take more time on videos if I need to. This one in particular, I thought was going to take me about 2 weeks, and I've spent over a month on it. This is excellent because I have big gratitude I can do that. I really struggled when my art schools keep closing video blew up. I was really excited to have a new community, of course, all these people that related to my experiences. But that also came with some awful comments too. That's the nature of the internet. But the sheer volume of responses left me overwhelmed and anxious. So I had to change from responding to everyone and instead take a more measured and realistic approach. I try to check and respond once a week, unless I post a new video that week, in which case I try to respond to the first couple of comments. So lastly, let's rate community. This is a 5 out of 5 as well. This place, I feel like I finally found my community online. I had minor success using other social media platforms. I tried Instagram and TikTok and Threads for more than a year. I posted consistently, and the only one that stuck was Threads. I really struggled to find my people, but here, all of you are. This is the best result of starting this channel, and it's been connecting with you and getting the ability to build a nice little community over on my Discord server. It's totally free to join, and it's growing little by little, and it's a little space for us to all hang out and support one another creatively. Bi-weekly, over on Discord, I write creative prompts for the community to inspire everyone, and then I host a sketchbook club shortly after, where folks can just show up, hang out, and make things together. It's totally free. I'm building a partnership with a yoga instructor friend to host sliding scale priced classes based on the prompts, alongside some fun workshops I have in store for all of you in 2025. Come hang out and make the place your own. In the description, you'll find a link to join and a link to the wiki I made about the server explaining how it works. In my content little dashboard I have a video planned explaining how to use Discord and why I like it as a way to build community online. So if you have questions about Discord, leave those down in the comments below. I really wouldn't have that rad Discord community if it weren't for YouTube. So again, thank you. The biggest impact of YouTube has been telling stories and sharing ideas. I didn't expect to make anything happen here. So I was willing to just experiment and play. I'm continuing to do that, so I don't just have to pigeonhole my style. I have a lot more I want to share, and it's how I met the friends I'm collaborating with to teach classes. We're actively building an alternate art world, and it's really exciting. I'll end this by talking about the things that didn't work, so I don't really have a rating for them. Okay, so first, that whole home portraits for home buyers and working with real estate agents thing. I reached out to real estate agents to try to offer closing gifts to new home buyers, a portrait of their new house. I made the switch to do this after a small business coach I met with suggested it, but it didn't work at all. After trying for about 6 months, I tabled the idea and I probably won't return to it. I would rather work directly with folks to paint their home or the homes of a beloved family member. One of the commissions I'm working on right now for the holiday season is of a situation just like that. So next up, my INPRNT store. INPRNT is really cool in concept, and my execution of this has been mid at best. I love that it is a more eco-friendly and economically conscious option. I love that it's print on demand. I love selling in a way that is open and unlimited, unlike the limited edition print-only rule that art school taught me. But I almost never talk about it on here, or on my Substack. That's my bad, big time. Occasionally I'll sell a print or a card set through my Instagram stories or through the description below, but I have a plan to really utilize it again this winter. The thing that I've learned about marketing is that in order to be successful at it, you have to keep talking about stuff over and over, and not just once. And that's hard, but I'm learning. I'm trying. We all are. I just finished a sketchbook, and I'm about 20 pages away from completing another. And when I upload those sketchbook tours, I will have updated scans on my INPRNT store for you to go snag your favorite pages. This will help to inform which ones I should scale up and print larger to have on hand for the various makers markets I do in the next year. Because I'm building my inventory that I have for in-person markets really slowly. Again, if you have more questions about that, leave them in the description below. I will answer them in a video. So let's recap these things with a neat little chart. First up, effort. The winner at the top is Substack at a rating of 2 out of 5, followed by art and commissions at about a 2.5 out of 5. Next up, makers markets. That jumps all the way to 4.5 out of 5 for effort. Teaching is, of course, a 5 out of 5 for effort, followed just behind by retreats, playing on the exact same amount of effort and energy. And lastly, probably the highest effort thing I do is YouTube, videos like this right here. All right, next up, let's go ahead and review everything based on well-being. At the top, art and commissions is the best thing that is supporting my well-being, followed by my Substack. I love that I am finally breaking free of algorithmic recommendations and being able to connect to people that are choosing to invite me into their email inbox. Next up, retreats are so nourishing and wonderful to do, followed right behind by YouTube. I really like doing this work and I think it's awesome. It definitely fills my cup. Behind that on well-being is makers markets because these take quite a bit out of me anytime I do them, even though they are super fun. And finally, teaching in person is tied with that makers markets as well, because it's a little bit hard to teach in person when you are chronically ill. And finally, in review, let's talk about community. So at the top, we've got retreats. I cheated the math here and rated this a 6 out of 5 as a way to tie break between Substack and teaching just below it. These are my absolute favorite ways to build community. Following that, I've got YouTube, also tied with Substack and teaching, but ranking it here just slightly below as it isn't quite the same as building that connection and community in person, but it's so awesome getting to connect with all of you here on YouTube. Following that, makers markets have been really, really excellent for me to build that local community. And finally, art and commissions, because of course, making art requires that you stop making art in order to build community around your work. So with that, that's the end. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of this lengthy video. Hopefully you found these shares and strategies helpful. Go ahead and like this video or leave a comment down below to let me know. If you have additional questions about the things I talked about, leave those in the comments too. And until next time, stay creative and find your own way to persistently bloom. Bye!